Oh, there we go. Can't start anything without that.
Recorded, it's like it never happened.
You have to behave yourself, Naftali.
I know. I'm going to shut up now.
Yeah. Well, you don't have to behave yourself. Who said you have to behave yourself? Okay, so let's start because there's a lot to do, and hopefully we get it all done. Anybody has questions, try and ask in, but if it doesn't get asked, so then just post it, and I'll try and read it off the chat. Yeah? I imagine everybody can do that. Okay, so this year it's unique because first day Rosh Hashanah is on Shabbos. So Benegay to the davening, obviously there's no Tkiyah Shofar, and we don't say we say Keladon, right? Let's go in the order of the davening. So we say Keladon. Well, Friday night you say Vayichulu. Got to make sure you say Vayichulu in Kiddush and Yom HaShishi in Kiddush. Then Shabbos morning we say Keladon. We don't have Tkiyah Shofar. We don't say Avinu Malkeinu. We don't say Hashem Hashem's when you take out the Sefer Torah. Got to make sure you add in all the Shabbos additions into the Shemoneh Esrei. If you forget them, then ask the Shaila exactly which ones you forget. Most of the time, you won't have to repeat. The big thing is with saying Bakashas on Shabbos. So first of all, it's a double issue. There's a double issue here. Can you say Bakashas on Rosh Hashanah at all? And if you do say Bakashas on Rosh Hashanah, how about when Rosh Hashanah falls out on Shabbos? So really, we don't say Avinu Malkeinu and we don't do Hashem Hashem because those are requests, right? Avinu Malkeinu are requests on so we do that on Rosh Hashanah, but we don't do that on Shabbos. So that makes it sound like you shouldn't have any requests on when Rosh Hashanah falls out on Shabbos. So the Chazon Ish held that you can. He didn't discuss making bakashas or asking for requests on Shabbos, but he did say that personal requests on Rosh Hashanah are allowed. Many people think that personal requests on Rosh Hashanah are not allowed. Most places can say that it is allowed, and many say that even on Shabbos it's allowed. And interesting enough, that halacha is on every Shabbos you are allowed to make personal requests if the personal requests apply to Erlichkeit and Yiddishkeit, meaning if you're making a request that you should be able to learn better or daven better or have a refuah shalem or whatever it is because you want to be a better Yid, then that's allowed on every Shabbos. Right? So basically, what you have to do is you have to try and not change necessarily, but channel, that would be the right word. Channel all your tefillas on Rosh Hashanah and Shabbos that they should all have to do with Yiddishkeit and trying to be a better Jew, and then everything is fine. Right? So, which, by the way, is the way it should be done anyways. Anything that we're asking from Hashem on Rosh Hashanah should be for Hashem's sake, to be a better Jew. Which is not about us davening for a new car, etc., etc. Right? We're supposed to be davening so that we whatever it is that we want can make us into better Yidden. Chaim Volozhin says a mashal, like on Rosh Hashanah we're all fighting for our lives essentially. Right? So imagine if a guy's house is burning and they come to him and they wake him up and they tell him you gotta get out of your house because it's a sakana. And the guy says, yeah, I'm coming, but this bug bit me in the middle of the night and I just want to kill it because I want to get revenge. Right? You think the guy's a meshugana. So you come in Rosh Hashanah, right? We come in Rosh Hashanah to daven, and we're davening for our lives, and we're asking about that we should be able to afford a good vacation or something like that. It sounds ridiculous. It sounds ridiculous to Hashem. It should sound ridiculous to us. So the bottom line is if we channel all our tefillas, that it should be that we want parnasa in order that we should be Erlich Yidden, etc., etc. So then that for sure can be daven on every Shabbos like that, and kol shekain on Rosh Hashanah. Yeah. Okay, so that's basically the Shabbos. So Tkiyah Shofar therefore is going to be on the second day. Was the only time we say Tkiyah Shofar, and we blow Tkiyah Shofar. So therefore it's a derabana. So there are going to be more leniencies with Tkiyah Shofar especially with women. Women are women are potter from Tkiyah Shofar, but they've taken it on themselves to make it into a requirement. But okay, anybody who, if a woman can't make it, should ask an individual shayla. But the bottom line is the women did take it on themselves to hear shofar. Yeah, okay, somebody just asked which tefillah. You can say tefillah, you can say personal kashas, wherever it is. Usually at the end of Shemoneh Esrei is the time that you would put it in. Okay, so now it's Erev Rosh Hashanah, Hataras Nadarim. So Hataras Nadarim really is any three males can be in the bezin, and they can be related. It's a common question. Can you do it with your kid, brothers, relatives, whatever it is? Yes, you can. They can be part of the bezin, right? That works for all year round too when you're being matar neder. Yeah. If you have a specific neder that you want, even though it says in the Hataras Nedarim Nusach that we say, it says every neder that I could have possibly made. However, if you know that there's a neder that you want to be matar neder, then you're allowed to. Then you should specify it. You should specify what that neder is while you're in front of the bezdin. Yeah. Now you cannot ask a shliach to do. You can't ask a shliach, especially this year. People are not going to shul. COVID, right? We'll try and get to the COVID shilas eventually, right? But people, if they're not going to shul, a shliach cannot be matar neder for you. The poskim have said that you can do Hataras Nedarim over Zoom. That seems to be what most of the poskim are saying. A man can be a shliach for his wife. That is allowed. So a man can be a shliach for his wife. So, and that gets an interesting minhag where it seems like why don't women have to be matar neder? Right? Really, why shouldn't they have to be matar neder? It seems like the minhag in Klal Yisrael has been that women don't do Hataras Nedarim. So, but some men have the minhag, right, and daughters too, right? So some have the minhag to tell the bezdin that they're doing it on behalf of the. You can't really do it on behalf of daughters. I guess, yeah, theoretically you can, but a wife for sure you can. Right, so some people tell the bezdin that I'm doing this on behalf of my wife, and then if you're really fancy, you change the terminology, because the terminology is in a lashon yachid, right? It's not a lashon rabbim, so you can change it, but you don't really have to. My personal minhag is I'm not matar neder for my wife. Some say the reason why the women, not the reason, but what women can do is they can, when they say kol nidre, if they go to kol nidre, then matar their neder by kol nidre. But otherwise, it seems like many have the meaning that women don't do this. Okay, fine. Fasting. Yeah. Any questions on the Hataras Nedarim, or that's whatever was posted? Yeah. Okay. So fasting. Many have the meaning to fast until chatzos.
Excuse me, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So for those of us who aren't going to shul, so what should we do?
What should you do? Well, if you can get a minyan on your porch, then fine. Right? Or outside. If not, then do it on Zoom. Do it on Zoom. Get three people on Zoom, and then you say.
Don't they have to be?
Yeah,
don't they have to be chachamim?
They don't have to be chachamim. No, they don't have to be chachamim. No. There was something that you just reminded me.
And what if the woman does not go? What if the woman does not go to Kol Nidrei?
The minhag is not. The minhag is that they don't. The minhag is that they don't. They just don't do Hataras Nedarim for whatever the reason is. That.
But the husband does.
The husband does. Well, the husband does not have to do it for the wife. That's the minhag is not like that. But some people do that, so it can't hurt. It certainly can't hurt to do Hataras Nedarim.
So what happens to their nedorim?
What?
So what happens to their nedorim?
What happened? I don't know. It's if they have a specific neder, they'll have to be matar, or their husband could be matar for them, right? Okay.
I mean, we don't remember all the nedorim that we made during the year.
Okay, so then it's not really me'ikar din. It's not a problem. This is more of a ceremony thing. It's not necessary. Yeah. So without getting into the whole specifics of why that is, but it's more of a ceremony type thing. Clearly, before Rosh Hashanah, before Yom Kippur, they wanted us to be matar. They wanted to do something with being matar neder. Okay, so fasting. Many have the minhag to fast until chatzos on Erev Rosh Hashanah, and then if you can fast till mincha, which is a half hour, the earliest mincha time, which is a half hour after chatzos, and then you could say anenu, then that's also some have that minhag. If it's going to make you weak, especially this year, if you think you're going to be weak and weaken your immune system, so then you should not fast. It's just a minig ba'alma. Okay. Now, what's interesting is that there's a goyish minig. The Mishnah Berurah brings this down that there is a non-Jewish minig that they fasted the day before their holidays. So some say that it looks like you're doing something that the non-Jews do when they fast before. So therefore, you should drink before davening or when you get up, so that if you get up before Alois, you should get up before Alois before the fast starts. Again, the fast doesn't start at night; it starts at Alois, which is in New York. It's around 5:40, 5:20, 5:30, 5:25, whatever it is. So you drink before that, like this. You doesn't look like when you're up for the day, you already had a drink. Fine. Mincha. Some have the minhag to go to the Beis HaKvaros, to the cemetery, to daven on Erev Rosh Hashanah, and or during somewhere in this during a Saturday Tshuva. Mincha. The Paiskim bring mincha. You should daven on Erev Rosh Hashanah. That's the last mincha of the year. So you want to cap the year, the last tefillah of the year, with a in a chashuv way. So you want to So you want to end it. You want to end all your tefillahs that way with properly concentrate. So therefore, make sure you daven a good mincha. Yeah, and maybe not try to make it rushed either, like many do before they go into Yom Tov. Okay, mikvah. This year, this is a real COVID issue. This year is the mikvah issue with the COVID. Okay, so many of them need to go to the mikvah on Rosh Hashanah, Erev Rosh Hashanah, right? Really, that tefillah is for keri. It's not really for tesefes kedusha. I mean, obviously, you're adding on kedusha when you go to the mikvah, but it's just for tumah. So if you don't want to go to the mikvah, you can't go to the mikvah. So then what you do is you take a shower, which is called Tisha Kavim shower, which depending on, it's very hard to gauge exactly how long that shower should be, right? But I would say 7, 8 minutes, 9 minutes, depending on what it is, that will act. It's not as good as the mikvah, and you should really go to the mikvah. But if you're scared, then you can do that. You can rely on that. The ocean is fine. A swimming pool is fine. Also, a swimming pool is really fine for Erev Yom Kippur too. But and you can go with a bathing suit on. You do not have to take off the bathing suit. Just loosen it. But the filter should be off. If you're going in a pool, the filter should be off. At least preferably be off. You don't have to go back in if you realize that the filter was on. All right. Fine. Relations on Rosh Hashanah, also a lot of confusion with that. Halachically, relations is 100% allowed on Rosh Hashanah. The Mishnah Berurah says that if you're going to have relations, then go to the mikvah before davening. If not, then not. It's fine, right? But you should try to. Or if you could take a long shower and before going to daven, that would also be okay. But it might be a little cold since you can't turn on the hot water. But again, if there's a lot of desire and it's shalom bayis issue, then you definitely should be together. It's not usher. And those that were not Mekayim Pru Revu don't have this minig. Right? This minig doesn't apply to those that were not Mekayim Pru Revu. And that goes for both nights of Rosh Hashanah. Fine. Okay. First night Rosh Hashanah. So after davening, we say L'shana Tova Techasav V'Sechasim. Now I personally found that because we have L'shana Tova Techasav V'Sechasim La'alta L'chaim Tovim L'Shalom, and that's a mouthful for a lot of people, and a lot of people are tired, and a lot of people are hungry, and they want to get home. So what they do is they don't end up saying it at all because it's too long, and they trip on their words, etc., etc. So they don't say it at all. It's a real halacha that's brought. It's brought in Shulchan Aruch that you're supposed to wish your fellow Jew a good year. So, but the basic words you're supposed to say is L'shana Tova Techasav V'Sechasim. For a good year, you should be written and be sealed. That's it. The La'alta L'chaim Tovim L'Shalom is icing on the cake, right? So you don't have to do that. If that's going to make you not end up wishing anybody that you meet on Rosh Hashanah by night not have a good year, then don't add those words. Just say L'shana Tova Techasav V'Sechasim. And that, I think that's pretty doable. Or say it in English, right? So, but again, because people have a hard time saying the whole thing, so they just forget about it. No, it's a big thing to wish your fellow Jews a good year is a big thing, and we know from Simonim that Simonim means something. Exactly how Simonim, we'll get to that in a minute. How that works, I don't know, but it's a Gemara already that what goes on Rosh Hashanah is a simon for the rest of the year. So when you wish your friend or whoever a good year, it means something, right? Now, do you have to walk around to be proactive to go find everybody to say Lashana Tova? No. But and I'm not so sure when you're walking past somebody in the street you have to. But when you stop to greet somebody, then that greeting should be with the Lashana Tova, right? And then of course the whole Atzeres Yimei Tshuva, whenever you say goodbye to somebody, you should say some form of bracha to wish them a good year, right? You can really say, till when do you say Lashana Tova? Really, it could be said until Chatzos of the first day, because we say that the Gezar Din is the first 3 hours of the first day of Rosh Hashanah, right? That's really when the first round of Din is given, is the first 3 hours. So you can say it up until Chatzos, which most people are davening from then. So I've never really heard of anybody wishing each other that during the day, but you can. So now Simonim. So we know that the Simonim is a major thing. It's a Gemara, right? The Gemara mentions 5. The Gemara mentions 5 different things. As you say, Yiratzon, most Sidurim have it, most Machzorim have it. But you're allowed to add any Yiratzon you want that fits in, that's a play on words. Okay? Many poskim say you don't have to eat the foods that have the Yiratzon. Meaning, if you don't like to eat black-eyed peas or whatever other interesting things that people come up with to make the Yiratzon on, then you don't have to. You don't have to. You could just look at it. As long as it's there on the table, you're fine. Okay. So then, and you can make the Yiratzon with that. Most say Hashem's name in the Yiratzon. If your minig is not to, or if you're not sure, then you don't have to if it makes you nervous. Second night Rosh Hashanah, you could also say the Hiratzons. If you don't have a specific minig to say with Hashem's name, then do it second night without Hashem's name. Okay? The Mishnah Berurah brings down that you should, the biggest simon, I don't know if he says the biggest, I don't remember his exact terminology, but he says that the best simon for a good year is not to get angry and upset in these days. Right now, the Yetzer Hara being the Yetzer Hara, we know that it's a very mesugel time, Erev Yom Tif, and it's a skula almost to get upset and to get angry, and that's not Erev Yom Tif, I guess it's not Rosh Hashanah yet, so you get in your anger maybe Erev Rosh Hashanah, but don't get angry on Rosh Hashanah, right? So then because it's a bad simon, it gets a bad omen for the year to be upset, right? If you're going to be upset on Rosh Hashanah, then maybe you're going to be upset for the whole year. But of course, if you did get upset on Rosh Hashanah, don't say, forget it, now I'm done. I got upset Rosh Hashanah, and now I'm done, so I might as well just keep getting upset. No, right? You can do an instant improvement during these days. So if you got upset and then you had another opportunity to get upset and you didn't get upset, I would assume that would negate the original getting upset, right? Then, so that's with the Yehiratzons. Now, another thing is you don't have to have the Yehiratzons right at the beginning of the meal. It seems that the Yehiratzons were throughout the meal, meaning many people just line up all the Yehiratzons, say right away at the beginning of the meal. You can do that, right? You can do that, but really what it's meant to be is like when you have the fish, you say the Yehiratzon for the fish, right? Whichever the Yehiratzon you particularly you want to say, right? Right, and then when you have carrots, if you have carrots in the middle of the meal, so then you do it when you have that. It doesn't necessarily have to be right at the beginning. Okay. Okay. So we're going to get to the brachas in a minute. Actually, let's do that now. So one of the main one is dip the apple in the honey. Right? Dip the apple in the honey is the main one. So now, but we know the halach of Hilchos brachas is that you make brachas on the peiros of Eretz Yisrael, the seven fruits of Eretz Yisrael. You're supposed to make brachas on that first, right? So I think the minig in Klal Yisrael, most of Klal Yisrael, is that they make a Borei Priya Eitz on the apple. Okay, so let's take a step back a minute. Why are we making a bracha? We just washed on bread. Right? You just washed on hamaitzi. To make hamaitzi on challah, why are you making a bracha? Because fruit is not part of the meal, right? You don't eat an apple as part of the meal. Maybe it's part of a dish. You don't eat it part of a meal. So therefore, since it's something that doesn't normally get eaten with bread, that's why you have to make a bracha. On the vegetables do get eaten during bread meals. So on the vegetables, do not make a Borei Priya Adama. If you have carrots or black-eyed peas or whatever else it is that you're making the Yehiratzon on, don't make a bracha Adama. The only one that you make is Borei Priya Eitz. Now really, it should be done on pomegranates or dates. Right, I think those are the two common ones that people have. So really, the Borei Priya Eitz should be made on that. If your minig is not to, so what the Paiskim say is either take it out of the room, or put it on the table and cover it, and then make the bracha on the apple, and obviously have in mind all the other fruits. But according to the basic halacha, it would be that you should make on. How's it going on the pasuk first? The date should go first, right? Eretz, Chita, Saira. What's the pasuk? Anybody remember the pasuk? Eretz, Chita, Saira. Yeah, I think it's the date. Okay, what if somebody has it? Give a holler or whatever. Post it. Yeah. Fine. So that's that. So that's the with the bracha. Now another thing is when you make the bracha, the order that you do it is that you make the bracha on ha'etz, then you take a bite, and then you say the Yehiratzon. Do not make a bracha and then say the Yehiratzon and then bite the food, because then the Yehiratzon is a hefsek, right? You got to make the bracha ha'etz, then bite into it, and then you make the Yehiratzon, right? The food should be in your hand when you make a bracha. That's halacha always. The food should actually be, you should be holding the fruit in your right hand. You should be holding the fruit in your right hand when you make the bracha. So again, make the bracha, take a bite of the food, then say the Yehiratzon, right? Then once you made the brachas, then all the other Yehiratzons, you say it before eating the food. Okay? Oh, so thank you. So Eretz, Chita, Sa'ira. Oh, I lost it. Kefin. What do we say over there? Let's see. Right, so Ta'ena, Ta'ena, Veriman, right, so Eretz, yeah, so that's what it is. Oh, another thing with the apple, good, thank you. So with the apple, many people use apples that are bitter, right? It doesn't really make any sense to have a bitter apple. I think that's where it came from, that you dip it into the honey, right? Because you want to sweeten the apple. But if you can get sweet apples as opposed to green, I would assume green apples is not the right type of apple to use, right? It should be red apples, or I don't know what all the different names of the apples out there, but it should really be a sweet apple, right? Because we'll get to in a minute with the different foods you're supposed to stay away from. So they're not supposed to be bitter or sour. Now, a green apple is sour, right? I think, isn't that that's the point of it? So really, it should be a red apple, even though you're going to dip it in honey, so it's going to sweeten it up, right? But it should be an apple that's sweet, yeah. Yes, you can come up with simanim in English, but it shouldn't become into a joke fest. It should be something. It should be something serious that makes all sorts of jokes. Then it just makes a mockery of the whole thing. It's difficult enough as it is, right? It's difficult enough as it is to understand what's going on with these simanim, and then to go making all sorts of crazy jokes. But then that's probably not so proper. But yeah, it's still something that if it's going to help the kids, they pay more of attention to it, then do that. Yeah. There's no number to have. There's no minimum number of Yehiratzons, as many as you want. There's no shortage of brachas that you can make. If you're making a litzonistic, you're making up your own Yehiratzon, I would probably stay away from saying Hashem's name, right? That I would do. I would try and stay away from saying Hashem's name on the original Yehiratzons that people make up. Okay, so now foods, common question, the sour foods. Okay, only sour and bitter foods are a problem on Rosh Hashanah. Because again, it's bad to have a sour year. Nobody wants to have a sour year. Nobody wants to have a bitter year, right? But a spicy year is not a problem. And what do you call it? What's the other? Hot and spicy, whatever. That's not a problem. So hot and spicy foods are okay. Although some people have the minhag not to, but it's not in halacha. So chrein has a lot of vinegar in it. So the vinegar is considered sour, I guess, or bitter. So that's why people stay away from it. Right? That's what we're saying with the green apple. What?
Frank's Red Hot?
Frank's Red Hot? No, that's hot. Hot sauce is fine. Hot sauce. Some people out there, I would say, if you like hot foods, then you have a mitzvah of Simchas Yom Tif, right? It's
you want to have a geschmacki. That's
right. That's right. That's what they say. I don't remember who they say that from.
One of the Rosh Yeshivas thing.
Yeah, so you want to have a geschmack a year. That's why you ate chrein, I think, even, no?
Does that override?
Does the geschmack a year override?
Yeah, say you like a vinegar salad.
Right, so that's what they're saying. It's not if you really like it, so then you could have it. However, I mean, the minhag is that they don't have sour things that taste sour, but you have to taste it. So putting it into a recipe is no problem. Like salmon, like lemon juice is another one that people stay away from because it's sour. But you to put lemon juice in a tea, if you don't really taste the strong lemon, that tangy whatever taste, then it's fine. Same thing with salad dressing, same thing with mayonnaise or any of these types of foods. As long as you mix it in and you don't taste it, it's certainly not a problem. Okay? Fine. Then we get to the nuts situation. Yeah, walnuts is really the nut that you're supposed to stay away from. There's two reasons why we stay away from nuts. One is because the gematria of ego is, as we know, is the gematria of chet, right? Which we don't want to have anything that has anything to do with chet. And the other reason is that it causes a lot of saliva. Nuts cause a lot of saliva. So since they cause a lot of saliva, so you should try and stay away from things. It's very difficult to do when you have a lot of saliva.
So,
right?
Yaakov, what you said,
Yeah.
You said a little bit ago about getting angry. So on the Kotzke says chet is also gematria chet.
Right, very good. Right, chet is again. Yes. You should try and stay away from doing chatoim too. That would be a good simon for the rest for the rest of the year too. Anyway, so again, sharp foods and etc. and all those type of things are allowed, now, unless you have a specific meaning not to. So the nuts, I'm sorry, we said it right in the recipe. We said it's already okay, fine. So on nuts, so that's the two reasons for the saliva and because of gematria chet. So therefore, things that are not called egos, if you go with the reason that it's chet, if you go things that are not egos, should be allowed to be eaten, right? So, which is true, but many have the minhag not to do nuts, to do any sort of nuts. Somebody asked me about pistachio. What's the story with pistachios? Is that a nut? Is a pistachio a nut? I know
pistachio comes from an apple. Pistachio comes from it's like a type of apple. It grows in the stem.
Oh yeah. So okay, so it's not. So you're saying it's not a nut. So pine nuts, I know pine nuts. I remember from last year, somebody told me pine nuts are not nuts.
The follow-up should be whoever said that. Can he dip pistachio with the honey instead of?
I mean, because if it's coming from, okay, yeah, it doesn't fit into the song though. It doesn't fit into any of the songs. The pistachio.
There are ha'etz. I think Rabbi Bodner says they're ha'etz. So yeah, they come from there's like an apple type fruit that it grows in the stem of the fruit, and it's that's why they're so expensive also, because there's one per apple.
Oh, very good. So okay, so then all right, so then you could have I told somebody today you could have pistachio, so that makes what about peanut butter? Okay, fine. Peanuts is not a nut. That's another thing. Peanuts is not a nut. I think I texted that out, right? So peanuts is certainly not a problem. What about like they have they make creams out of nuts and all that? The person can say it's better not to, because if it's made out of nuts, you're still gonna have the issue with you're still gonna have both issues really, but you're gonna have, certainly will still have the saliva issue, right? Yeah, right. Yeah, almond butter and all those type of things. Yes, thank you. From the grocery man. Yes. Yeah. Now, okay, the shechianu fruit. This is something that a lot of people get confused with, because the grocery stores, talk about the grocery stores, stock these oddball fruits that you never saw before and never see again. Right? It comes out on before Rosh Hashanah, all these fruits, right? So people put them out on the first night also. That's the shechianu fruit. The shechianu fruit is not meant to be eaten on the first night. As a matter of fact, if you put it out on the first night, the shechianu fruits, then you're actually defeating the purpose of the shechianu fruit. The shechianu fruit is meant for the second night, okay? Which we'll get to that. We'll get to what the pshat in that is. It's actually coming up in Daf Yomi starting tomorrow and the next few days. The reason why you'd want a shechianu fruit for the second night, and it's the only Yom Tov that you have a shechianu fruit for. Right? But again, the shechianu fruit should stay away. Don't bring it out until the second night. Okay. Now I'm not so sure. Right? I think. Yeah. So I'm not sure if you even mekayim with these new fruits shechianu, but we'll get back to that. Yeah. Any more questions on the fruits, nuts, simon stuff? Oh, so somebody asked me an interesting question today. I wonder what the Ilam says. They like to have the tail of the fish. One of the yiratzins is that we should be, you eat the head of the fish or the head of a goat, of whatever, an animal, and you say that we should be for the rosh, we should be at the head and not at the tail, right? So is that a bad simon to eat the fish, eat from the tail? Would that be considered a bad simon? I have no idea. I don't know. Anybody have an opinion on that? Maybe it's a bad simon. If we're making a yiratzin, that should be from the head and not from the tail. So then eating the tail maybe is a bad.
What tail do we eat?
Yeah. What?
What tail do we eat?
No, this person, they like to eat from the tail. Somebody just posted it. It's tasty. Okay, so I don't know. I never heard of not eating it.
Never heard of eating a tail.
No, not the actual tail. It's the end of the fish. Less bones back there, I'm assuming. I don't know. I wasn't sure what to say.
Put it on the grill, it gets very crispy.
What?
If you put it on the grill, it gets very crispy. It tastes good.
Oh, yeah? I hear. Okay. Fine. Now, once we're in Simonim, another big one is sleeping on Rosh Hashanah, right? So it says that you shouldn't sleep on Rosh Hashanah because you don't want your mazel to sleep. It doesn't say that if you sleep on Rosh Hashanah, you're going to have a sleepy year. Many people wouldn't mind the sleepy year, I think, right? If you can have a sleepy year, that means things are pretty relaxed and things are pretty calm if you're able to sleep. No, I'm kidding around. I'm just saying that sleepy year is not what it is. You don't want your mazel to be sleeping, meaning you're getting all your mazel for the year in Rosh Hashanah. I think this is the understanding of it. You're getting your mazel, right? Right. You want more sleep, right? You want more sleep. Right?
A little, not a lot.
Right. At least have the ability to get more sleep.
30 minutes, 40 minutes.
Yeah, right, exactly. Right. So but it's pshat that you don't want your mazel to fall asleep. Right? So if you sleep on Rosh Hashanah, maybe that's when you're being granted your good luck for the year. Whatever mazel means, I don't think luck is exactly the right translation of mazel. So, but that's what it is, not because you will have a sleepy year. Now, what's interesting is most people don't get up at dawn on Rosh Hashanah, right? So now you're sleeping during the day. Again, this is not referring to sleeping at night. It's talking about that's the normal bodily function. That's what you do. You're supposed to sleep. That's not a bad simon. But to sleep during the day is the issue. Good. So then why don't you get up? Why doesn't everybody get up at Alois? Why wouldn't you have to get up at 5:30 in the morning? Right? Right? So, yeah, there are some people that do have that minhag, that they get up at Alois because they don't want to be sleeping during the day at all. But what many poskim say is that it's referring to your regular night's sleep is your regular night's sleep. Yeah? So once you get up for the day, then you shouldn't go back to sleep. So then it comes out that if you got up at 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning to go to the bathroom or to get a drink, then maybe you should maybe you shouldn't go back to sleep, right? But then maybe not. If that's part of your regular sleep regimen, that you go back to sleep, so then that would be fine, right? Now, one thing is pashut also, and the Mishnah points this out, that sitting around the whole Rosh Hashanah afternoon and wasting your time is the equivalent of sleeping, right? So just because you don't want to go to sleep and you end up making everybody crazy in the house, walking around and getting on everybody's nerves, right? So that's pointless. It's either sleep or do something productive. Go to Tashlich, go say Tehillim. Obviously, preferable to learn as much as you can, or go to a shul that takes very long to daven, and then you don't have much of an afternoon. That's also an option. I don't think that's a popular option, but you could do that. You could do that too. But the point is to be productive. Okay. Fine. Yes. Parenthetically, if you're doing tashlich, the Farakaway boardwalk is not in the Eruv. Please tell this to whoever you can meet, because it's a disaster. And since, again, Rosh Hashanah is on Shabbos this year, people are going to be doing tashlich, and it's on Shabbos. Okay? Please let as many people as you can know that the Eruv ends right at the beginning of the boardwalk. There's plenty of room. Beach 9, well, it ends right at the end of beach, not the end, where the Ohel building is on Beach 9th after Seeger. Right after that, you look up, you see a wire crossing the street. It's around, I would say, 200 feet before the end of Beach 9th Street. Yeah? Some people have the minhag not to do it, and some people do have the minhag to do it on Shabbos. But those that do have the minhag, don't go out of the Eruv. That would really be defeating the purpose of doing tashlich. Okay, fine. Now, second night. So second night, what's going on with the Shechiyanu? Okay, so basically there's only one Yom Tif that is on the first day of the month, and that's Rosh Hashanah. Without getting into the whole sugya, for those that do Daf Yomi, they'll be getting into the sugya the next couple of days. But basically, because Rosh Hashanah was on the first day of the month, nobody anywhere in Eretz, right? I'm sorry, take a step back. Rosh Hashanah is the only Yom Tif in Eretz Yisrael that has 2 days too. So these two are connected. So since it's the first day of the year, it's the first day of the year, it's the first Yom Tif, it's the only Yom Tif that starts on the first day of the month. And in Eretz Yisrael, they keep 2 days. And the reason for that is because they weren't sure when the Eidim would come. Back then, the way they knew it was Rosh Hashanah is when the Eidim came and testified that there's a new moon. So they had no idea if there was going to be a new moon. There wasn't going to be a new moon. So they ended up keeping Rosh Hashanah the first day. And if nobody showed up, then we keep Rosh Hashanah second day. So basically what came out is that they ended up keeping 2 full days of Rosh Hashanah. And that's what we do in Eretz Yisrael. But we look at it like it's one long day. Yom HaRichta, it's called. We look at Rosh Hashanah like it's one long day. Meaning on a normal Yom Tif, there's the first day Yom Tif, there's the second day Yom Tif. They're 2 independent days, and that's why we make a Shechiyanu on the second night Yom Tif, even though it's not the first, it's not, why are you making Shechiyanu on Yom Tif? It's the second night Yom Tif. You already made Shechiyanu the night before, right? Again, we make a Shechiyanu, yeah, correct. So there's no Erev Tavshilin this year, right? So the reason why Erev Tavshilin is only when we go from Yom Tif into Shabbos, not from Shabbos into Yom Tif, but we do need Havdalah, which we'll get to. You do need Havdalah from Shabbos into Sunday, right? Because whenever you go from a holier day to a less holy day, then you do Havdalah. But so getting back to this, so Rosh Hashanah is considered one long day. So therefore, how can you make? I'm sorry, I skipped one step. 2 days Yom Tov. You make Shechiyanu on the first night. Why are you making Shechiyanu on the second night? It's the second night of Yom Tov. You already made your Shechiyanu. The answer is because you're making Shechiyanu because the second day is a new Yom Tov. It's a new Yom Tov Midrabanan that people in outside of Eretz Yisrael have to keep. So there's no question I'm making the Shechiyanu. But Rosh Hashanah is considered one long day. And we know the rule is that when you have a doubt of whether you should make a bracha or not, Safek brachas is lahakol, so you don't make a bracha. So how could we go make a Shechiyanu on the second night of Rosh Hashanah if many are of the opinion that Rosh Hashanah is one long day? It's not considered 2 different Yom Tovim, it's one long day. So how can you go make Shechiyanu? So to get around that issue, if you take a new fruit that requires a shechiyonu on it anyways, so now you make your shechiyonu on that new fruit on the second night, and therefore you're going to be okay. Right? Then you don't have any suffix brachas question because you're making a bracha on the second night on your fruit. Now, if you don't have a new fruit, or you made the mistake and you put out all the new fruits on the first night, and you made shechiyanu on the first night, and you had in mind the fruits, which would be the incorrect thing to do, like we said. But if you did do that, you still make shechiyanu on the second night. Okay? So you still make shechiyanu on the second night, but it's better just to try and get out of the shaila issue to have a new fruit. Okay? I hope that's clear. Now, the new fruit should be on the table. This is another thing. Since the whole point of the shechiyanu is to get you out of the shaila of a suffix brachas, make sure the new fruit's on the table when you're making the shechiyanu. It's got to be on the table. That's number one. Number two is that don't bring out the fruit in the middle of the meal and then make a new shechiyanu on it. That would defeat the purpose. You'd be okay doing that, but it defeats the purpose of having the new fruit. The new fruit's there to get you out of the brachas shaila of the second night, not to just make extra brachas. Okay, so again, it should be out by Kiddush on the table, and you should make the shechiyanu on Kiddush and have it in mind. Same thing, the one who's blowing shofar is supposed to either have a new suit, right? You have a new suit, or he should have a new suit or a new fruit in the talis bag, which I don't think, I don't know, maybe they do bring a new fruit, the balatekeya. If you saw the fruit before, it's still okay. It's still okay, right? Yes, and also that was the next step. The new fruit, when the woman is making shechiyonu, some women don't make shechiyonu on the candles; they wait for kiddush. But those women that do make shechiyonu on the candles should have the new fruit. If you're lighting the candles on the table, which is always the best place to light candles, right? But if not, in the room, on a buffet, whatever it is, you should have the new fruit there, and the woman should have in mind the shechiyonu on that new fruit. And yes, they could answer amen to shechiyonu by kiddush, and it's not a hefsek. That's a whole different tumult that some make. Because again, what are you saying?
I'm saying the Baltikadis, he didn't blow the first day, so the second day is the shechiyanu. He doesn't.
He's saying yes. So this year, you're saying this year is not an issue. Yes, thank you. Yeah, that's true. I'm sorry, I should have pointed out this year. This year, that's not an issue. It's an issue for kiddush. It's not an issue for the Baltikeya. Okay. Then when you eat, you don't have to eat the shechiyanu fruit if you don't want it. If you don't like it, you don't have to eat it. The shechiyanu is really going on seeing it. Okay. But the minig is that you eat it. You do have the shechiyanu fruit. Now, what qualifies as shechiyanu fruit? Somebody just texted that. It's an excellent question. It's actually interesting because many poskim say that nowadays, you can't make a bracha on new fruits, right? Because we have our fruits available all year. The reason why you make shechiyanu on a new fruit is that you're saying shechiyanu, that Hashem made me live, vehechiyanu, and I lived. That's shechiyanu v'kiyamanu, I'm sorry, and I survived to this time, right? Which is basically you have, let's say, apples were in season at one time of the year, and then melons. Well, melons is different where you make shechiyanu on that. Right, but you do all these things because you're happy that you live to see a new season. But nowadays we have, right? When I was a kid growing up, right? I didn't grow up at all, but I'm saying whatever little growing up I did, right? The pomegranates were always the shechiyanu fruit because you didn't have them around all year. Now everybody has pomegranates always. I can't eat a salad that doesn't have pomegranates in it the whole year. So pomegranates is out. So because these fruits are around the whole year, how can you make shechiyanu? We import the fruits. They import the fruits from wherever, whenever. There's no seeing new fruits. So many are of the opinion, actually, that new fruits nowadays, you can't really make a shechiyanu on. But that's not the popular minig. The minig is that we do make shechiyanu on new fruits anyways, but it's fruit that you haven't had. If you had it this season, then you certainly cannot, or seen it, then you cannot you can't really make a shechiyanu on it. Right, so that's what I'm saying with these weird fruits that you never saw before, and they call it shechiyanu fruit. I mean, the minig is that you make shechiyanu on it, right? That's the minig, but it's not. You're not happy to live to see that season of the fruit. Yeah. So therefore, you not. Yeah, I don't know. People do it, but I don't clearly understand. It should really be a fruit that you really are used to seeing, and you're happy to see it. Okay, but everything again, the whole thing is a chumrah just to try and get us out of the suffix brachas. So it's not that big a deal, whichever fruits. No, even though you saw the fruit when you bought it, but it's you're having in mind that you're going to make the shechiyanu when by kiddush. Okay. So that's basically the shechiyanu thing. Now, when you have to eat the fruit, some eat it before they even eat the challah. Some eat it after the challah, right? If you eat it after, either one, you're going to have to make a bracha bar priya eitz on it. Okay, so that's basically that. With
isn't seeing was like back in the days, and now like we don't get hana without eating.
Yeah, okay, you're right. There's some say that, right? Some say that.
So lachatchila we should eat it.
Lechatchila, you should eat it. Yeah, lechatchila, it's definitely better to eat it. But again, we're making the shechiyanu anyways. It's not, if you made the shechiyanu on the fruit, on the actual fruit, then of course it's better to eat it. But here, we're making the shechiyanu on kiddush. We're just putting the fruit there to get us out of the suffix brachas, right? So that's why we have it there. So it's much more mekel because you're going to make the shechiyanu regardless, right? Again, if you don't have a new fruit, you forgot to buy a new fruit, or you're a fruit guy, so you eat fruits all year round, so there's no way you can make shechiyanu. You still make the shechiyanu by kiddush, okay? Because it's just a chumrah, okay? Fine. So that's basically that with the shechiyanu. Yalav v'yavai. Yeah, correct. It's only really important for the one that's making kiddush. Correct, 100%. Yes, that's yeah. So if somebody, you forgot yalav v'yavai and benching, normally the halacha is if you forget yalav v'yavai, if it's in a time that you're required to eat a suda and you forget yalav v'yavai, then then you have to repeat, right? What about on Rosh Hashanah? Now, the reason why some poskim say that you don't have to repeat Birchas Hamazon if you forget Birchas Hamazon on Rosh Hashanah is because there are you forgot Yalav V'Yavai and Birchas Hamazon, right? There are those that say you are allowed to fast on Rosh Hashanah. If you're allowed to fast on Rosh Hashanah, that means there's no chiyuv to eat a suda, right? So if there's no chiyuv to eat a suda, so then you don't have to repeat. Which is basically what most poskim say is at night you're supposed to eat a suda, so you do repeat it, right? But during the day, if you forget to say Yalav V'Yavai, then you don't repeat. Yes, if Shabbos too. If you forget Ritzei, you have to repeat it. But no, because Shabbos, even if you forget Yalav V'Yavai, the suda is coming for Shabbos, not for.
But once you have the chiyuv.
No, that's a whole different sugya. Right? Okay, this is another question that got asked. Okay, so that's with Yalav V'Yavai. The bottom line is that since it's a big shaila, whether you should repeat, if you forget Yalav V'Yavai, make sure not to forget Yalav V'Yavai. Okay? People have asked, can you have friends over for meals on Rosh Hashanah? So, it's not usur. It's more of a spirit of the law, spirit of the day type thing. You have to really know what type of friends it is and what type of how is it going to be a type of friend where you discuss serious things, or it's going to just be a party? If it's going to be a party, then it would not be the right thing to do. Same thing with going to visiting friends. A lot of people want to go visit, wish a good year, and especially if you're too tired to learn and you don't want to go to sleep, which we said do something productive. So you go visit somebody and they feel good about it and you mechazik them. So then that would be a mitzvah, but not if it's going to turn into a joke fest, right? It's a very difficult avodah Rosh Hashanah because we eat and we drink and we're supposed, not to drink too much, but I'm saying we're supposed to enjoy ourselves, but you're also supposed to take it serious, right? So for me personally, Yom Kippur is a whole lot easier than Rosh Hashanah, right? It's all or nothing. By Yom Kippur, we're all in, I'm staying in a shul. There's not much time to say Lashon Hara. There's not much time to do Litzanis. We're busy. Rosh Hashanah, it's tough. To me, it's tougher, which I tell you. Fine. Okay, Tkiyah Shofar. Now, we're not going to go through all the halachas of Tkiyah Shofar, especially this year. It's a derabbanan. Right, chas v'shalom. You got to be machshavit as much, even though it's a derabanan, we have to treat it with the same severity as if it's a deraisa, right? But what's with making kiddush before shofar, right? So if you go with the real base halacha is that you should not be drinking or eating anything before kiddush. Very interesting because Purim, right? Nobody breaks their fast before Megillah unless you're really shvach, right? Nobody breaks their fast. Why? Because you're not supposed to eat anything before you do your mitzvah, right? So Rosh Hashanah should be the same thing, Kol Shekain, especially when it's a deraisa, which it's not this year, right? So, but again, it's not. There's two issues. There's eating before kiddush, then there's making kiddush before musaf. There's more kiddush. There's an issue making kiddush before davening musaf, and then there's the eating before Tekiyah Shofar, which is when you have a mitzvah to be done, you're not supposed to eat anything. If you go with those opinions, then you shouldn't even take a drink before davening, right? Because you didn't do your mitzvah yet. But that it seems like we're more makel with, and you don't have to. You can drink before davening, especially those that will not be eating till chatzos, because then that means you end up fasting till after chatzos. But if you're going to make kiddush, and there's plenty of opinions to rely on that you're allowed to make kiddush, right? You should not have more than a kebeya of like an egg's worth of kiddush, which would be about the half a piece of a middle piece of the rye bread, right? If you're having cake, then that's the maximum you should have, right? Fruits, vegetables, and drinks that you could have that you could have as much as you want if you make kiddush. Okay, then you have Tekiyah Shofar. Tekiyah Shofar, there's no talking from the first Tekiyahs till all the way out to the end to the last Tekiyahs. But anything that's talking that's required for the davening is allowed. So the poskim say Tillim, you can say Tehillim, and you can learn, but you shouldn't. If you're going to learn, you shouldn't learn out loud, and you shouldn't say the words. You should just scan it with your eyes. If you go to the bathroom, you are allowed to say Asher Yotzar. It's not a hefsek, right? It's different than Pesukah de Zimra. You could say also Baruch Hu Baruch Shemai, even though during Pesukah de Zimra you don't. Yeah. Don't say Baruch Baruch Shemai to the bracha of the Baal Tekeya, though. That you shouldn't do, because he's saying the bracha, he's having you in mind. So Baruch Hu Baruch Shemai to Chazar Sashatz, you could say, not Baruch Hu Baruch Shemai to when the Chazan makes the brachas on the shofar. What do you want to say?
Is learning, it has to be from Hebrew books, so you can read like those
no, anything. Hey, as long as you're just scanning with your eyes, that's enough. As long as you're scanning with your eyes, that's not enough. You're allowed to do that. You shouldn't verbalize it though, because that would be a hefsek, right? The truth is that once you hear the 30 koilos, really, or the 60, once you hear the first 60, it's already much more lenient to not to maybe be mafsek, right? So that's.
But why is it mutar? Why is it mutar?
It's not mutar. You shouldn't till the end, because the bottom line is the 60, right? The 30 that you blow before musaf, and the 30 you blow during either Shemana Esrei if you're nusach Sfard, or during Chazar Sashatz if you're nusach Ashkenaz. Those are the main tekiyas. The extra 40 is al pi Kabbalah, and it's really not. Those are extra tekiyas that we blow. So we lechatchila don't want you to talk, but it's not as chomer as till you finish the first 60. It also wouldn't hurt to not talk at all during Rosh Hashanah davening, having nothing to do with it, right? Right. Even though this year Shabbos you could talk throughout Musaf. I think it would be wise. It would be wise not to talk throughout Musaf. And if you have a hard time not talking, there's many minyanim that are looking for chazonim, and then you don't have a choice. So you can try that out if that's if you want to not, if you really have that nisayon of talking. Okay, we're not going to we don't have time to really go through the whole tekiyas, the nuances of all the tekiyas. Let's just do a few more things about davening. Yeah, so there's confusion. What goes on by Vanachnu Kairim in Musaf Shemana Esrei? Right, we say Aleinu in Musaf Shemana Esrei. Right, both days. So we say Vanachnu Kairim. Now, when we say Aleinu every day after davening, so we bow. So you're supposed to bow. It shouldn't be a full bowing like you do for the other, for when you like Maidim or Magen Avram or whatever it is. But it should be a slight bow. You should do a slight bow during your Shemana Esrei when you say Vanachnu Kairim. Okay?
You bend your knees also?
No, whatever you do normally by Aleinu. when the chazan during Chazaras Hashatz does Aleinu, when everybody's going to bow down, you're also supposed to whisper along. Most say, again, there's different minhagim. Most say you should say Aleinu along with the chazan, because you're also going to bow down. Since you're also bowing down, so you also want to be saying the Aleinu up until Vanachnu Koren. Okay. When you're bowing down on the floor, so most people take the shmata or the paper towels and they put it under their knee. That's not the halacha. The halacha is you got to put it under your head. Since you're putting your head on the stone floor, then you're not supposed to be putting your head on the floor. The knees is a non-issue. Okay, many people, I would say most people, are not aware of this. It goes under your head, not under your knees. You want to put it under your knees too, because you don't want your suit to get dirty, but it really goes under the forehead, and using your arm doesn't work. First of all, it's not on the floor. Second of all, it's part of you, so your arm is considered part of you. If you pull up your sleeve or use your talus, that would theoretically work, but that's not a proper thing to do with the talus. But again, it goes under the head, and even if it's not a stone floor, we already don't do it on any type of floor, even if it's carpeted. How long do you stay down? How long do you stay down on the floor? So there's different opinions. It seems like most say that up until the words HaKadosh Baruch Hu, right? V'anachnu kairim v'shtachim v'enu l'fnei melech malchei hamlochim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You get up before saying the word HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's when you get up. Okay? And then you continue saying the words till Ein Oid. Right? The Chazan, interestingly enough, has to make sure that he says that's part of Chazaras Hashatz. So the Chazan has to make sure that he says the rest of Aleinu after Vanachnu Koren out loud, because it's part of Chazaras Hashatz. Yeah, one more halacha, that when after shul everybody's in a rush to leave, some say that's a bizayon. To be running out of the shul on Rosh Hashanah right after davening shows that you really were not so happy to be there. As much as it's difficult for us to daven for that long, but some say that you should stay in the shul for a minute or two, a couple of minutes, just sit down and show that you're not rushing to get out of there, and sit down and learn something, and then you go home. Okay, I think that we can stop over here. I hope I included everything. If I didn't, please let me know. You don't go totally on the floor. You're on your knees and then your head, right? You don't lie flat out. We don't do anymore. They really would run out of room in the Bismillah. Maybe this year we'd have room, but on other years it would really be if you laid flat out. First of all, I think half the place wouldn't be able to get up. Anyway, yeah. Okay, so that's all. Fine. Aksiva Sima Taiva and a good yar, and everybody should be well.
I mean, good year.
Gleich Peretz.